great topic today that we've got lined up. I'm fortunate and blessed to have Ruthie Gray with me from Selerix, who is a senior development lead product manager at Selerix that really is one of the people that knows more about Selerix than just about anybody else out there. And when last year we had our on-site user meeting, and we had Craig Stevens from Selerix, and the feedback was just so great. And I've known Ruthie for probably going on a year now, that I was looking forward to having you on, and so I'm so happy that we can have you with us this morning.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So kind of on the queue for today, for our guests that are on the line, I do want to point out that you have your Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. Ruthie is a wonderful person to submit questions to, and really, as it relates to questions that you might ask today, everything is inbound. So if you want to know about a functionality that currently exists within Selerix, what's on the docket for future, a question about how the system works, a request for something that you'd like to see, feel free to drop those in the Q&A throughout the session today. And as we get down to the end, we will look and see what we've got in there. In terms of Ruthie and I's conversation today, we're going to focus on some personal history first, and then just kind of go through the evolution of Selerix at Ruthie's time at Selerix. And get into also some things that are new and emerging, and also the future state of things to be. So welcome, Ruthie, again. Just so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. This will be a lot of fun.
So Ruthie, as I was preparing for our conversation today, one of the things that I noticed is that your undergrad degree is in psychology. How does a person with an arts degree in psychology get into the world of technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, I was psychology with an industrial and organizational psychology focus. I did my master's work in organizational psychology, and I had this idea I was going to go and I was going to work HR. So like a lot of you. And my first job was at Electronic Data Systems, that's located here in Texas. And I had a boss who saw something in me that I never saw in myself, and he said, "I think you can code." And I had never taken a single programming class, but at the time, EES had a program called the Systems Engineering Training Program. Basically 13-week boot camp, they teach you how to code. And I went through the first one, and I got asked to come back as an assistant instructor for the next one. Did a couple of those, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm a programmer. So I stayed at EDS a couple of years. I worked for the software arm of Halliburton Oil for a while. Then I went and stayed home with my kids for 10 years. And if you leave technology for 10 years, you come back really obsolete. So when I started looking for a position, I wasn't going to be getting something actually writing code, but I found this little company near me called Selerix. And Selerix said they were looking for people with a technical mind who could do problem solving. And I'm fortunate to work for a man who, again, like that mentor I had earlier, saw something in me that I wouldn't have brought out on my own possibly. He brought me in. I started out as a case builder. Spent about 4 years building cases, setting up enrollment group or setting up employer groups. Then I developed a training program because I realized we really needed a way to train people on our software. We didn't have that before, so I implemented a training program, and I became over the training program for a couple of years. And then it was a real natural move to product management when that position opened up, because I'd always been looking at how could the system get better. What could we do to make it better? How could we make it easier for our users to get the information they needed? So it's been kind of a winding path, but it's been a fun one.
In 2012, when you started, Ruthie, the world was different then, right? Because there wasn't Wi-Fi out there quite like there was today. How was Selerix different in 2012, just in terms of how your software was being used and what Selerix was doing?
Yeah, so we've always had this disconnected version of our software for places where you can't get internet completely. So the kind of these laptop builds. And it is funny because every year that I've been here, we've thought, okay, the number of people using these laptop builds are going to decrease, because Wi-Fi is more, like you said, Wi-Fi is more readily available, but we still find those laptop builds to be very important. So that's increased. It really has been more of a focus on looking at a more holistic benefits administrations package. And what HR professionals need, what we need to do to manage benefits for our employees. It's been taking a more holistic view across the board is really the biggest change we've seen, rather than staying laser focused on enrollment.
Ruthie, I think a lot of people, back in the mid 2000s, 2010, 2012, thought of Selerix as a voluntary benefits first platform, enrolling critical illness plans and cancer plans and accident plans and dealing with things like state specific variations and complex compliance considerations, being an application taking engine for voluntary plans. At Selerix, inside of Selerix, did you always have a broader vision in mind? Did you always know it was going to be something that was going to enroll a lot of medical and dental and vision and other kinds of benefits?
That's funny that impression has always been there, because that's kind of been our bread and butter, and that's been what set us apart from other companies that do similar services, is our voluntary benefits enrollment. But from the start, we were built to enroll core benefits as well. From the start, we were built to be able to handle your medical, handle your dental. When you look at how that kind of data is transmitted after an enrollment, those use the 834 most of the time. We have over 800 834 templates built out on our platform. Building an 834 through our platform is very simple. Because that's been something that's needed. We always have had that focus on core as well, but we've really been seen for what we can do with those voluntary benefits package that maybe some other software solutions can't provide.
Now, we've got 2/3 of our guests on the line are HR folks, and so they may never have heard the words 834 before. So what is an 834?
Yeah, an 834 is just a really ugly layout of data. So an organization came together and put this together as a standard. So a standard is great because you should be able to use the exact same data layout to transmit no matter who the carrier is, no matter who the employer is. That's the idea behind a standard. And I'll talk a little bit later about another standard that actually follows those kind of standard guidelines. The 834, however, as a lot of government things do, those of us who work in the public sector, it's kind of expanded and bled out. And so this version of the 834 may not have to look like that version of the 834. It's basically a very difficult to read text layout document that gives benefit enrollment information.
And would it be accurate to say that what the 834 is being used for is we go through an enrollment and a person has 5 medical plans and they've made selections on what tiers and what plans, and that an 834, that is the format that Anthem or UMR or Delta Dental, that's the format that they're going to want that information when Steele sends that to the carriers, yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's the same kind of data you might picture in a spreadsheet that has your enrollment for your company, but it's not a spreadsheet. It's a text file with segments and weird delimiters and weird things that make it very difficult to read, but it means something to the carriers of being able to pull that in.
As a person who didn't have any technical background at all when we started down the path of building benefit enrollment sites for companies, I think that was one of the things that was most surprising to me, as we hear these intimidating words like coding and file feeds and 834. And at the end of the day, really what we're doing is formatting Excel files in a format that people want to receive them and sending them at a duration of their choice. It sounds so much more intimidating than what it actually is.
All we're doing is we're letting the employees say what they want to elect. We're gathering that data, and then we're feeding it out to all the different systems. So feeding it out to the carriers, individual carriers, telling them what they want, to your payroll system, to a COBRA administrator, et cetera. And all of those partners want to receive the data differently. So that's a big part of what we can do.
At Steele, virtually all of our customers that utilize your platform, we build it out and use it year round, encompassing of new hires and terminations and life events and so forth. But that hasn't always been the case for everyone that uses Selerix, right? So how has that evolution looked like? Did you always know that there would be big adoption of your platform on a year-round basis, or how has that kind of evolved from a point of enrollment tool to something that gets utilized all year round?
Yeah, so really early on, there was the intention that it would be used year-round, because when our founding members of the company were talking to HR professionals, we knew there was this need. It's not just a need for being able to take enrollment once, but you've got new hires, you've got people who have children, you've got people who get married, divorced, have to change their benefits year-round. It was built with this goal in mind of year-round benefits administration. I think there was a little fear early on from companies saying, wow, that's a lot to manage. I don't want to have to do that year round. And then they realized how much time it saved them. That rather than every time a new employee came on board, they had to individually reach out to all the different carrier partners to enroll that person, to send paperwork in. They could do it all in one place. That this became a one-stop shop year-round for whether you're processing your annual enrollment, new hires, terminations, transfers, salary changes where we can automatically update benefit amounts, automatically update deduction information. Just getting from that intimidation of, okay, I only use this once, to I can use this year round, and that makes life easier. Had a little bit of a growth curve.
It's interesting. You and I have been working together since 2015, and I was fortunate that when I came down to Texas to learn to build cases myself, that I got to learn directly from you. So that was wonderful, along with Lindsay and Christine from my team. And I feel like since 2015, things have changed so much just in the world around us. How has Selerix kept up? Like what has happened in the last 5 years, and how do you deal with everything that's going on?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So with the introduction of the ACA, obviously, benefits got a lot more complicated to manage, and managing that time tracking and what benefits people are eligible for, how we make sure people are getting appropriate benefits offered to them became much more complex. The way we looked at that is ACA is very much about your benefits, and 95% of the data points you need for ACA reporting, sending the forms to the government, getting forms to your employees, already live in our system. We know, what you were eligible for at different points throughout the year. We know how your eligibility has changed. We can track the hours you've worked. So all that kind of information was already in the system. So one of the things we said when this came out is we've got to make this really easy. So our ACA solution is one of the things that's developed from these outside factors. Another big thing that maybe not necessarily related to outside factors, but a big focus for Selerix in the last, I'd say 8 years, has been really getting that good focus on user interface. So how do we make the system easier for HR professionals to use? How do we make the system easier for companies like you to set up enrollment cases? How do we do that across the board? And we've really made a dedicated effort to bring in user experience professionals who can give us that focus, working on figuring out those user stories, where those pain points are. So that's been another growth area for us. And I think the third thing I want to talk about is this realization that information about our benefits can actually extend to communication with employees. So if this is a one-stop shop, this is the software that should be used year-round for employees to enroll, to do life events, to make any kinds of changes to their benefits. How can we extend that and use this platform for communication with employees? Obviously, communication about benefits. We want to, be able to inform people, educate people about their benefits, and I think that's kind of where our whole idea on engagement started. But then it really expanded. We don't just have to communicate about benefits. We're communicating about our full employees' wellness, about our full employees' engagement with the company.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm going to walk through all three of those just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The first thing that I'm interested to do is just walk down memory lane a little bit. So 2015, the year of, and I'm leaving 2014 alone, 2015, the year of ACA reporting, what was that like, trying to understand what the government needed from ACA reporting and deliver that 1095 reporting the very first time?
Yeah, it was crazy that year. It really was, because the guidelines kept changing slightly, but the guidelines kept changing, the rules kept changing, the dates kept changing. And I think we had an intention up front of, let's use this analogy, we'd build the car and then we'd let a company go drive it. So we'd put this platform together that could allow them to do look back reporting, figure out eligibility, figure out if they can report on where correct employees offer their benefits, getting those 1095s put together. But we kind of had a hands-off model saying, well, we built this, now you go use it. And we saw really quickly that was not the right approach for this. ACA is just much too complex. And so we really put a strong service model around it to work with companies like yours that also put a fantastic service model around it. and to provide guidance for that. So we have an ACA staff that stays up to date on all of the new regulations, all the new guidelines. They're sending us emails every week with, by the way, the government's saying this now. So even this far into it, 5 years into this, we're still getting changes. And this year, particularly with COVID and the extension of deadlines, it's been very key to have those people who are really ACA experts who can tell us what we need to know and tell partners like you what you need to know as well.
Well, it's interesting too, because things don't stay static, right? Some of the states are doing things that impact what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. This year we've had to add automatic filing, integrated filing through the system for New Jersey and other states. DC was on that list, and getting that information and making sure we're compliant and that we can keep our clients compliant has been very important.
I have moving on and maybe talking about user interface a little bit. I have a new client to Steele that has launched 3 weeks ago, and it's interesting because we had actually talked to them maybe 3 years ago or so and received the feedback that the system wasn't as beautiful as they wanted, and they had selected something else, and then some time passes and they come back around and they joined Team Steele about 3 weeks ago, and their comment was, wow, this doesn't look anything like the system that we saw 3 years ago. And so I'm curious, like from your perspective, like were those wholesale changes? Were they easy to change? What went through the process of updating the user interface?
So when I came on board at Selerix, there was kind of the joke that we had a Lamborghini engine and a Pinto body. That our platform could do anything we needed it to do. We have great flexibility. We have an embedded scripting engine that allows us to change any data that we need to make your enrollment work the way we wanted, but we had just never really focused on that look and feel and the ease of use. So like I said, we did bring some experts in to help us with that. We have an entire UX design team now. Any changes we make, we'll run through them first, they help. But another big change that we made is we realized that even though we may say, wow, this looks beautiful, this should be what everyone wants, that may not be what everyone wants. I don't know if you've ever spent a Saturday watching one of these fixer-upper shows on HGTV. All of those houses look very, very similar. And while that's a great look and that meets needs for a lot of people, you're going to have also people who want additional needs, who want it to look a little bit more modern, a little bit less rustic, a little bit less subway tile, whatever the current trend is. So a couple of years ago, we introduced something called Theme Manager. And Theme Manager really gives groups like yourself the ability to customize an enrollment site to look exactly the way the employer wants it to look. We can change all the colors, we can change all the fonts, we can change how the buttons look, we can change the layout of certain buttons. We really tried to extend how we can make that work to meet the needs of everyone that's coming through the door.
That's a great point. And for our guests that are on the line, I would, if you would like to see some aesthetic enhancements, I would invite you to ask your customer success manager about that. As that also is something that we've been focused on at Steele for, I'll say, the last 2 years or so. Yeah. Is we have wonderful technology talent at Steele that, my opinion is, nobody does a better job of setting up complex rules to make sure people see the proper deduction amounts and things like that. But we also want to make sure that your system is beautiful as well. And so if you would like to see a color match to your logo or to your website, or if there's something that you'd like to see look different or better, I mean, definitely would invite you to reach out to your customer success manager and ask us, what we can do to help you in that area. And Ruthie, I think it was interesting because I'll even say, myself, I had felt that there was room for aesthetic improvement for a long time. And as a salesperson who was out in the field, sometimes felt that we were sewing around what the look of the end product looked like. And if I could maybe just pay a compliment to you and your team, is we've heard things as we've been out talking to employers just this year, last year, where they're maybe coming to us from very high priced systems. And so when we got to the discussion about aesthetics, I would wonder, what are they going to say? Is this going to meet the standard? And by and large, opportunity after opportunity, time after time, the answer has been unequivocally yes. And so I know from my perspective, I'm very thankful for the user interface work that you guys have done.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
So on the benefits communication firm side, on the case builder side that Steele does, we very much historically from 2000 to present have been focused on helping our customers deliver the best open enrollment experience possible. And then from 2015 to present, also working on eliminating duplicate entry and giving a year-round tool. But one thing that the industry has always, I think, maybe known was a good thing was to engage employees year-round. And I think, at least at Steele, not speaking for others out there, but we're maybe guilty of giving some lip service to that and suggesting that people do it. But what tools and resources have we really made available to make that easier? And I would say, coming into 2020, the answer for us at least is not much. And we've got some tools in partnership with you guys that are really going to help our customers that utilize it have a complete engagement experience. And so I wonder if you would maybe talk a little bit about your new Engage product and what it does for people that make that part of their portfolio with Steele.
Yeah. Absolutely, I'd be happy to. And we're very happy to have you partnering with us on Engage. It's been an exciting process. So Engage is all about targeted, measurable communication with your employees. Let me start with the targeted. We have the ability of any data point we have in the system. So, gender, location, state of residence, age, benefits you've elected in the past, benefits you've declined in the past. We can target communication to those groups. So if we want to reach out to people who have been offered a critical illness package in the past, but have waived it for one reason or another, and explain to them how this might be helpful to them, we can target that kind of communication. So targeted specifically at who needs to hear this. We can target at age groups and genders and populations that may need to learn more about maybe their wellness benefits that they have available to them. Different features of your benefits packages that could be helpful to them. We can target specifically on that. So that targeted is very key. We're not just sending a mass blast out to people who aren't going to care about it. We can also customize these messages. So we have the ability to put data points about the employees in the message. Hi Wes, since you just passed your 4-year anniversary with the company, we need to let you know that these things are available to you. We can put that personalized kind of information in there as well. It's also measurable. So at any time, an administrator of the platform can look in and see how effective your communications have been. Have the messages been opened? Have any links embedded within them been clicked? We can send out quizzes and surveys to engage your employees in giving you feedback. So, and it's been funny because again, this was originally intended as a benefits communication tool, but everyone we talk to has brought us different ways of, I could use this for that purpose. For example, we have a trucking company that's using this platform for being able to send out, did you finish your mandatory safety exams? So sending out a quiz or a survey of getting that information for them to get feedback, because it's two-way communication. You can interact with your employees in the way that they want to be interacted with, and they can interact back with you. So targeted, measurable, two-way communication between employers and employees about really any range of topics.
We're really excited about that at Steele, just from the perspective that one thing that we hear HR say over and over and over again is employees don't read their email. And the lowest common denominator, or the simplest thing is just promotion of open enrollment and dates, new things that might be available, enrollment instructions, things like that. Then there is the ability to communicate benefits. So for example, target the medical participant population and communicate on drugs available at an on-site clinic, or communicate a flu shot day to eligible folks.
Right.
So those statics things. But I also think, talking with one advisor who has a prospect, that the company's challenge is 30% of their employees don't show up to the first day of work. And you think about companies that have communication challenges or engagement challenges, and it impacts things like hiring, productivity. Can you talk a little bit about what is events-based communication and what is coming around the ability to communicate around events?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So currently in the Engage platform, everything is built off of a schedule. You know, starting today, I want to send these kinds of messages out. I want to send a survey that's available for 2 weeks. But the feedback we really got from groups like you is we need this events-based communication. What I mean by events-based communication is when there's a new hire, I have a series of things I want to do for that new hire. I want to send them an initial welcome aboard message. 5 days after their hire date, I want to ask them, have they completed all of their onboarding tasks? And can they check in with HR? I want to send a text saying, you know, welcome to the Steele Benefits family. I want to make sure they've enrolled in their benefits. And these are based off of not just a set date, but based off of someone's hire date. So hire date can be an event that can trigger communications to go out. Additionally, we can have things like work anniversaries. We can have on a life event. So when an employee gets married and we process that life event of a marriage in the system, we can then send the employee reminders. Now that you've gotten married, you have the ability to log on to your enrollment platform, potentially change your medical, dental, vision elections, whichever ones are open for those. You can add your spouse to your life insurance. Getting those messages out to employees when they happen, as they happen, is what all the events-based communication is based on.
That's awesome. And when an HR person sets those up, when you set up the events-based communication, do you have to remember to run those on a continuous basis, or how does that work?
No, that's the genius of it. So you set up a campaign, is what we call it. So it's a communication campaign. Set it up saying whenever there is a new hire, whenever there is a marriage event, whenever, you know, whatever the event is, these communications are going to go out, and then you set it and it just runs. It over the entire course of the year. You don't have to remember, did I send an email to that new hire? Did I remind this person to go update their benefits after their life event? Those communications happen automatically.
So one of the things that I think that's best about that particular engagement platform is it's integrated with bin select, right? So from a list management standpoint, what additional work is there on an employer to maintain that system that has the ability to send out communications?
If they're already using our Ben Admin platform for year-round processing, then it's all done. It's all there for them. We're already keeping track of new hires. We're loading new hires. We're handling terminations. We're handling transfers. We're handling life events. If you already live in the Ben Admin platform, then you're ready to go.
I've got a couple of questions coming in the Q&A that are surrounding this engagement piece. So I'm going to go to those, Ruthie. The first question is the engaged piece only used for benefits, and does an employer have the option to communicate their own piece or create their own communications?
Yeah, great questions. No, it's not just used for benefits. That is really where we thought it would go when we started development. It was really, we were focusing on benefits, but that's not what it's about. It's about communication between an employer and an employee. Absolutely, you can create your own communications. We provide some templates. We provide some ideas of things you can do. But like I said, we've got groups that are sending out surveys on did you remember to do your safety exams? We're having flu shots this week. Hey, don't forget the corporate event we're having this weekend. You know, before everything shut down here at Selerix, we were using this system internally to send out reminders of when we'd have Beer Friday. It's really whatever communication you want to get out to your employees. And the genius is that you can send it email, text, or there actually is an app that we can send push notifications to. And it's funny seeing where people's preferences are, because as an end user, as an employee, I can indicate how I'd like to receive the messages. You know, I really don't want my employer texting me, so you just send me emails. Or someone else saying, I get 500 emails a day. Don't send me an email, send me a text, or I'll look in the app. Where do I want to get this information? Employees can get the information the way they want to.
How does an employee tell you what those preferences are, how they prefer to receive those communications?
Sure. So there's an employee portal. You don't have to use our application that we have, our phone app. You know, some people say I have too many apps. I don't want to load a new app on my phone. That's fine. You absolutely don't have to. There's a web-based portal that employees can use where they can see their whole message feed, all the messages that have ever come through from their employer. They can also set their preferences in there. They can set profile information. We also, because we're integrated with your benefits, in that employee portal, we made a place where the employees can view their benefits year round. They have a view of their benefits and a view of all the benefits documentation that's available to them. We've added the ability on the app for them to be able to take pictures of their cards, store them in it so it becomes a digital wallet as well. So I don't have to remember, do I have my medical card with me everywhere I go, because I've got a picture of it in my app front and back. I can show that and get that if needed.
If I'm an employer on the line that's interested in that, how do I know, and let's say I subscribe and so I've got that service available, how do I know how to use that service as an employer administrator?
How to use the setting up the communications?
Yeah, how do I know how to do it? Do you have like a guide, training materials? What sort of guidance can you give?
So there are different onboarding processes where we can train. If HR professionals do want to set up their own campaigns, we can absolutely train them on how to do that. We have documentation and guides for that. We also have some partners who are handling that for them. So some service opportunities that are available there.
Sure, and I definitely anticipate that that's something that we'll be helping our customers with. Looking at the Q&A and kind of moving down to other functionalities that are coming, I've got a couple questions in the queue about the state of payroll connectivity. Do you want to can I just open it up to you first just to talk about payroll connectivity generally, and we'll see where that takes us?
Yeah. Topic near and dear to my heart nowadays. We're working a lot on this. So in the past and currently now as well, most of our payroll connectivity comes through the form of files. So, we're going to send a file to your payroll company that has all the deductions for this pay period. We're going to take a file in from your payroll that has new hires, terminations, job class changes, etc. And that's great. That continues to work. We're not getting rid of that. But there always is a time gap in those situations, right? So this employee was hired, but then they didn't go over on a payroll file and get into the system for a week, so they can't enroll until they get into the system, and then they have their deductions. And it might be another week before that goes back to the payroll system. If you're on a weekly processing, you might get some lags in there. So we've really started moving towards APIs. Now I want to take a second so that I'm not sounding like just some geek who's throwing out acronyms here, and talk about what APIs are. So APIs are application programming interface. And again, that still doesn't mean anything. Think of it like you've gone to a restaurant. You got your menu. You can order off the menu by telling the waiter what you'd like. The waiter's going to take that order back to the kitchen. The kitchen's going to prepare you a meal and bring it out to you. The menu is the documentation of API functionality that one software system might use. The waiter is the API call. So this is basically a way to go to someone else and tell them this is what I want. As a user, as a consumer of this API, I don't have to go tell the kitchen how to make what I want. I don't have to tell them that the oven needs to be turned to 350 degrees and be sure you sear that just right and be sure you add the chicken broth at this point. I don't have to tell them any of that because they know how to do it. So APIs are just ways that software can say, here's how you communicate with me, here's a list of commands you can give me, and here's the things I can give you back. So in payroll APIs, and we have some of these payroll connectivity through APIs set up already, the idea is that we can call the payroll companies' APIs to say, tell me any new hire you have at any point. Ping me when you have a new hire. So that's one API that they're going to send us a ping every time there's a new hire in the system. When we get that ping, we can make a call to them saying, now send me that new hire. Send me the information. We pull the new hire information, we can load it directly into the Ben Admin platform. So within a minute of the employee being entered in your payroll platform, they're now in your Ben Admin platform where they can go and enroll and continue things. So imagine a new hire coming on day one. You're not waiting saying, okay, well, you'll get to enroll in a few days. They sit down, they make the coffee, they're ready to enroll. After they enroll, then we make a call to the payroll systems API and say, now what I want you to do is I want you to take all these deductions. So we can send all those deductions over real time, load them into their system, and then it's already there. So within a few minutes of enrollment, those deductions are already in your payroll system and set up for processing.
And we have a lot of guests on the line that are raising their hand right now saying, do that for my payroll system, because there's not hardly a day that goes by that I don't receive a question about better connectivity of payroll systems. And I know that Selerix has a very tight payroll integration available with Paylocity. Are there other systems that also have that tight API with, or are there announcements on the horizon where you foresee major payroll companies coming on board with that?
Yeah, so there are going to be announcements on the horizon. We're currently working with both Paycor and NetChecks, and I expect those to be out this year. Like you said, Paylocity we have a very tight integration with. And it's been interesting because as we've been going out talking to payroll companies saying, let's do this, we had some payroll companies that said they wanted to do this, but they wanted us to be the kitchen, in my analogy, and then be able to make calls to us rather than us make calls to them. So in the original analogy I gave, our Ben admin is the consumer making calls into the kitchen. And what we've heard from some of the smaller payroll companies is they'd be willing to make calls into ours. So we also have recently released our own Payroll API where other users can tell us, hey, we want to tell you here's a new employee. Now we want you to send us their benefits. So they can make those same menu requests to us now.
That's interesting. And the emergence of API, which undoubtedly is going to take time, but is the technology of the future, that's going to really impact payroll as that becomes more prevalent in the market. But that also is going to impact how information goes to and from carriers as well. And I know we're going to talk about that with Lyle next week, but I wonder if you would kind of tee that up a little bit. What is API connectivity with carriers? What's the future state of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to throw back to something I was talking about earlier about a standard layout. So that 834 standard, like I said, wasn't a great standard, but there's been an organization, the LIMRA organization has put together a new standard that covers all types of benefits that is actually a true standard. It's actually very easy to implement. And one of the great things about this new standard is that it can be used both in file format and in API format. So Lyle has been instrumental on the committee that's been putting together the standard and figuring out how this is going to work. And Selerix is positioned to fully take advantage of that. So what that means is these same kind of calls, the same kind of real-time data exchange can happen with carriers, but it's not carrier specific. We don't have to determine how does Guardian want to receive this data versus how does MassMutual want to receive this data versus how does MetLife want to receive this data. They're all going to receive it in the same way and send data back into our platform the same way. So they can send us enforced coverage changes. If an employee has directly called the carrier, they can send us those changes real time. We can send changes that an employee has made through the enrollment system to the carrier real time. And we lose this lag in processing.
Maybe moving on from integrations to just talking a little bit, wrapping up, talking about the future. You're no stranger to receiving enhancement requests. I'm sure. Nope. What do you get then? Every week, every day?
I maintain a long number of wish lists.
So you've got the wish list right now of future enhancement requests. What are some of the things that are on your wish list that you hope to work on in the future?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've already been talking a lot about are these integrations, and that's going to stay on there because really what we've realized is there's not a one size fits all platform that's going to meet your needs across the board for everything that HR professionals need to do. So we've said, what can we really focus on doing well, and then how can we connect with the other companies that are doing things that you need as well? So those integrations with other payroll systems, with carriers, with other platforms, with HCM platforms, we're continuing to work on those integrations of keeping things tight together. Another thing that actually we're going to be releasing this week, at the end of this week, we're going to be rolling out some new functionality around virtual enrollment assistance. And so this is something that came about, as you can imagine, when the shutdown started in March, and we started having benefits administrators say, oh, what's going to happen if I can't have my enrollers meet face-to-face? Places that had always done, we're going to have enrollment meetings, weren't going to be able to have those enrollment meetings. And looking at that, we said, what could we solve in this? And what we really needed to solve was a way to put the employee in touch with the employer when they need help. So if an employee is logging in for self-service enrollment and needs assistance, how can they get help? How can they reach out to an enroller at that time saying, this is what I want, and this is how I need help. So this is being rolled out actually this weekend. There's integrated chat that's going to be available on it. And again, this can be set up on a group by group basis, as well as for the opportunity for the employees to request an appointment, to request time. So an employee could log in and say, wow, this self-service isn't really what I thought it was going to be. I have some questions. Can someone reach out to me? Here's the times I'm available. I'd like you to send me a text. I'd like you to send me an email. I'd like you to call me, whatever their communication preference is. It's a way for us to put the employee and the enroller in touch with each other for those assistance. So we've been doing a lot of work on that. There's definitely going to be some more work around Engage. Like I mentioned, the targeted event-based communications is coming out, as well as we're going to be building some scheduling functionality into Engage as well, where people can set up appointments for different things through Engage. And then the last area I think this group is going to be very interested in, and this is not a 2020 initiative, it's probably going to roll into 2021, is something we're calling HR Experience. HR Experience is all about making life easier for the HR professional. So right now, when you log into our Ben Admin platform, there's a lot of information there available for you. But I'm going to be the first one to tell you, sometimes it's confusing to know where you need to go to get the information you need. And we've sat down with a lot of HR professionals who are users of our platform and found out those pain points, found out these are the things that are hard for me to do. These are the things that I'd like to be easier. For example, we had one HR manager that says 5 times a day she gets someone, and she was a school district, a large school district. 5 times a day she gets an employee calling in saying, I need you to tell me, what benefits I have. I don't remember what I signed up for. And she was having kind of a hard time seeing that one-stop view of not only what benefits you have, but who's covered on them, when they started, what changes may have been associated with that. So one of the things we're implementing in this HR Experience is a one-page view that shows all of the employees' demographic information, their work history information, and all of their benefits, and not just a list of the benefits, but under each benefit, who's covered under these benefits, what are those dependents' effective dates within the benefits. So I may have had medical for 5 years, I added my spouse 3 years ago, and I added my child 2 years ago. Let me see those dates right here without me having to dig in and get that information. So this one-page view that then you can print out actually and say, here's what we have for you. And I tell you, Julie is over the moon with the idea of this, because she said that's just going to save me so much time every day rather than having to pull all that information together or try and run some kind of reporting for it.
That's an awesome example of vision that you guys are doing. And as I'm first hearing you talk about this HR Experience, I'm very interested in what that's going to look like. So many of our guests on the line, that's going to directly impact them and make their lives easier. And when you first start talking, I think, well, what about the coverage tab? That has all that information on there. And I think about, what about the benefits statement? That form has all that information on there, but it just, sometimes we don't know pain until after it's solved. And, so those pieces of information are all readily available at a simple click now, but just the idea of making that more consolidated, that it makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely. Another function of that is going to be a one-page history. And this history is not going to be specific history. So right now you can look at kind of a history of applications taken and a history of changes made to your employment, a history of your demographics. This is going to be a one-page history. So what has happened on this employee since they've been in the system? The employee enrolled themselves on this date. They did a life event on this date. It changed their dependents on this date. They changed their coverage on another date. Seeing that in one place where it's searchable, seeing it in order, is really going to provide a lot of benefit to our clients.
That's awesome. And I know you had some of those things on the docket for this year, and COVID threw us all a curveball. Absolutely. And some of the communication tools that you guys have been able to develop is just awesome. So we're focusing on communication now. We've got HR Experience, some scheduling tools. It seems to me like the future is bright for our employers that are users on the line, just to be able to better access information and do more with it. And I think, Ruthie, I might wrap by asking a question to you of just as you look towards the future and what you know to be true at Selerix and where you guys are at organizationally and what you see going on in the broader environment, like what makes you excited about the future, or what does it look like, the future of benefits, communication, engagement, enrollment?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really does come back to those APIs because there is just so much potential there. Integrations that we can put together where the end user doesn't even have to know what's going on behind the scenes, and we're just passing data. Data gets into one system and it automatically flows into all the other systems. There's just so much we can do around that, not only with passing it benefits information back and forth, but making the setup of employer groups easier and faster from information you may already have in Salesforce, et cetera, rather than saying, okay, let's get everything out of our other systems to set this up. It's just going to be able to flow. So we're going to remain highly committed to API integrations, what can be done through APIs. And the great thing about APIs is you're not even going to really have to know about that much of it. It's just going to happen. It's going to be, we just pulled that already. Yes, you entered your payroll information. It's already here. You don't have to push a button. You don't have to go make sure that happened. It just happens. Things just talk to each other. I always say every problem is a communication problem. And I think the same is true in this, in that if we can communicate better between different systems, if we can communicate better between employers and employees, between enrollers and employees, enhancing that communication across the board and getting people in touch with each other the right way is really key.
Yeah, that's exciting. And if we look at the work that happened over the last decade and where we've come from over the last 10 years, it's exciting to think about where we could be 10 years from now from the state of what systems can do and the integrations and so forth. That's really exciting. Ruthie, it's been so wonderful to have you on with us today. We always appreciate your valuable perspective, and we thank you for the work that you do. I'm going to also thank you for our guests that are on the line. I know some of the things that we've directly done over the last 5 years that have made our guests' life easier has been something that you've had a very hands-on approach in, so thank you so much for that. And for our guests that are on the line as well, I definitely am aware that many of you have spent the last 8 weeks with us, giving us an hour of your day for 8 consecutive weeks. And so I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I hope this content is valuable for you. As always, if you have questions for anything that was raised today, there is an email address that you can send your questions or comments to, and that email address is info@steelebenefits.com. So if maybe we just touched on something today that you would like to have a more in-depth conversation about, feel free to send us an email at info@steelebenefits.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll be back on Wednesday next week with Lyle Griffin to talk a little bit about the history and the broader environment of benefits technology and other technologies. So we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you, Ruthie.
Thank you.